Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 begins with two hunters, Reynald and Briegel, chasing after a few dogs that ventured into the woods. One of them is slightly apprehensive about going inside, as he recalls a sinister rumor about the place being cursed. Yet, his partner tells him not to pay heed to such superstitions. As such, they enter the woods and begin their search. For some time, the hunters bump into an old woman who warns them about a curse and urges them to run away. However, they don't listen to her words and venture deeper into the forest. Soon after, they notice their dogs barking at something. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 shows a werewolf-like creature emerging from the bushes. The hunters run away as fast as they can and return to their castle. Yet, as soon as they return, they bleed to death due to an unknown cause. What's worse, their faces are disfigured following their death. Following the opening scene, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 shifts to the Phantomhive Manor, where Ciel Phantomhive is seen studying German under Sebastian's supervision. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 then reveals that Ciel has received a message from the Queen to look into a series of mysterious deaths in Germany. He wonders why he must go all the way to Germany when the Phantomhives are supposed to manage the underground society in England. However, since the Queen has many relatives in Germany, she wants Ciel and Sebastian to investigate whether the deaths are occurring due to an epidemic. That way she can send medical support immediately. She mentions how neither Kaiser nor the German government has given her a proper reply. Ciel mentions how he has already thought of using the Phantomhives information network to gather details about the situation in Germany. After that, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 shows Ciel and Sebastian meeting Claus to discuss the matter. Claus talks about his recent travels to Germany. After learning about the incident from Ciel, he directly went to the village and the mansion where the deaths occurred. However, it didn't seem like it was due to an epidemic. Moreover, when Claus asked the locals about the deaths, they said that it was due to the witch's curse. In addition, all the victims have one thing in common. They all visited the werewolf's forest, an occult forest that's regarded a taboo by the locals. However, Ciel Phantomhive doesn't believe in witches and the curses. Since there's no other information available, he decides to head to Germany and investigate the matter himself. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 shows Ciel and Sebastian arriving at the outskirts of Nuremberg, Germany. Ciel Phantomhive becomes frustrated when a man talks to him, as he cannot understand the southern dialect. As such, Sebastian becomes the mediator. The man says he won't accompany them to the forest, as he has no wish to die. He continues, saying how the victims who went to the forest had their faces swollen. Moreover, their skins also got bloody, as if they were on the verge of melting. The man claims that there was a mysterious survivor, who kept on shouting that the werewolves were coming. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 then shifts the focus to Ciel, who feels they should go to the forest directly and investigate themselves. The man refuses to let them take his carriage, so Sebastian buys it from him. Meanwhile, the Phantomhive servants Finian, Snake, Mayrin, Baldroy, and Tanaka wait for Ciel and Sebastian. Once they procure the carriage, the party ventures into the werewolf's forest. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 shows Sebastian's notes uncontrollably spinning in the forest. Ciel thinks it might be due to the minerals buried underneath the ground. After that, they discuss the witches. Ciel Phantomhive thinks the witches are human beings who have been falsely accused in trials. Moreover, it's also unusual for witches to curse someone. However, Sebastian doesn't quite follow that. He recalls an incident of a Sabbath summoning, where a qualified being can summon a demon when they are prepared to sacrifice their soul. As they discuss this further, Ciel and others detect a village in the forest. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 shows a mysterious village which looks well-maintained. Even though there are many houses, they all seem vacant. This moment, Finian shouts to see if anyone is there. Suddenly, many women come out with farming tools. They surround the party and call them intruders. Seeing them all, Ciel is convinced that there are only women in the village. The villagers think the intruders must be after their liege lord. As such, they want to punish them with a death sentence. This moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1, the village's liege lord arrives with her butler. She introduces herself as Sieglinde Sullivan. The other man is Wolfram Geyser, who aggressively approaches Sebastian and asks where he has come from. Sieglinde snaps at Wolfram for his rude behavior and apologizes to the demon butler in his stead. However, she falls into silence after seeing Ciel Phantomhive. Wolfram informs everyone that their village doesn't permit visitors and asks them to leave. Moreover, he's surprised by the fact that they have come to the village unscathed since a werewolf protects the place. This moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1, Sieglinde whispers something into her butler's ear. Wolfram then changes his tone and tells Ciel and others to stay the night in their castle. Ciel, Sebastian, and the Phantomhive servants follow the liege lord and her butler. While following them, Ciel notices the village and how it looks slightly abnormal, with torture instruments lying around. He suspects something occult must be going on in the village. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 1 ends with Ciel Phantomhive, Michaela Sebastian, and others arriving at the Emerald Castle. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2, titled His Butler Sounding the Alarm, was released on Saturday, April 12, 2025. Picking up the events from the previous episode, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2 begins with Sieglinde Sullivan inviting Ciel Phantomhive and others into her green mansion. As Finian reaches to touch a suspicious-looking flower, Sieglinde tells him not to since it's poisonous. The Phantomhive servants remain on the ground floor, while Ciel and Sebastian follow the liege lord and her butler upstairs. Interestingly, Ciel Phantomhive notices that Sieglinde Sullivan practices foot binding, a practice commonly seen in China. He wonders why someone would do that in Germany. Following that, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2 shifts the focus to Sieglinde, whose stomach growls in hunger. Ciel and Sebastian realize that Wolfram, who has gone to prepare dinner in the kitchen, is late. Thus, Michaela Sebastian volunteers to go and check what's taking Wolfram so long. Sebastian's absence leaves Ciel in discomfort as he doesn't know what to say. Yet, he manages to hold small talks with Sieglinde, who discovers that Sebastian is Ciel's butler. She also asks Ciel about his parents, and he tells her that they are dead. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2 shifts to the manor's kitchen, where Wolfram meticulously prepares the dinner. However, when Sebastian reveals to him that Sieglinde is seriously hungry, he begins to show haste. Seeing Wolfram struggling, Sebastian assists him with the dinner preparations. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2 shows Sebastian preparing a German local dish for Sieglinde, who loves it a lot. She then asks Wolfram whether he has made the soup. However, Wolfram says he hasn't. Eventually, Sebastian and Wolfram work together to prepare gorgeous meals for Ciel and Sieglinde. Just then, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2, Hilda barges into the mansion, crying that a werewolf has been sighted. Ciel, Sebastian, Sieglinde, and Wolfram head to the plaza and find a young woman brutally injured with claw marks on her back. The sight shocks Sieglinde, who claims that a werewolf has never done this before. She applies a mysterious substance to the woman's injury. Meanwhile, she realizes that the woman hasn't kept her talisman with her. Elsewhere, Ciel and Sebastian observe the situation. This moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2, an old woman appears and says the werewolf has attacked the girl because of the outsider's arrival. She blames Ciel and others for the unfortunate incident. Wolfram urges everyone not to venture into the werewolf's forest alone for the time being. Following that, the party returns to the Emerald Castle. Sebastian notices the liege lord eavesdropping on him and Ciel Phantomhive.
これはサリバン様。従者も連れずお一人。レディが男性の部屋の前で立ち聞きとは感心いたします。
This moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2, Sieglinde Sullivan reveals that she's a witch who can read other people's thoughts. Sebastian, on the other hand, asks Sieglinde about the werewolf. Sieglinde begins the story by explaining the witch hint. According to the episode, the witches were originally perceived as people who could drive away misfortune with spells and save humans with herbs. Yet, the locals deemed them as heretics. As a result, they fled to the werewolf's forest to escape from their pursuers. One of them, called the Emerald Witch, who happens to be Sieglinde's ancestor, offered her legs to protect her kind. She also formed a contract with a werewolf. That's why her successors must bind their feet so that they cannot walk. According to Sieglinde in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2, it's been hundreds of years since the Emerald Witch made the contract with the Great Werewolf. Sieglinde feels the contract must have worn out, which is why the werewolf is attacking the villagers. Sebastian attentively listens to Sieglinde's story and feels the villagers are imprisoned by the werewolf.
はは坊ちゃんそのご年齢でな
あんと男裏若き乙女に恥をかかせるとはなんて無粋なやつ
Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2 shifts the focus to Sieglinde, who urges Ciel to tell him about the outside world since she hasn't left the village since birth. Eventually, Ciel Phantomhive befriends Sieglinde, and as a token of friendship, he receives an amulet from the girl, which she says will protect him from the werewolf. The night, Ciel Phantomhive and Michaelis Sebastian head to the werewolf forest to start their investigation. They feel uneasy due to the foggy atmosphere and the eerie silence in the forest. This moment, Ciel begins to experience tears flowing uncontrollably. Moreover, Ciel and Sebastian witness the werewolf nearby. After returning Ciel to the castle, Sebastian goes alone to pursue the werewolf. As the butler runs through the forest, he realizes that tears are glowing from his eyes as well. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 2 ends with Michaelis Sebastian wondering why he is crying, when he should be devoid of showing such emotions as a demon.
というベッドでの甘い時間とやらを教えてもらおう。
おもちゃで遊びたいそうです。
何？最初からハードだな。
Black Butler Season 5 Episode 3, titled His Butler on Loan, was released on April 19, 2025. Picking up the events from the previous installment, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 3 begins with Sebastian Michaelis wondering why tears are flowing from his eyes. Since he's a demon, he's supposed to be incapable of harboring such emotions. Furthermore, Sebastian notices that his skin is starting to swell. Suddenly, he recalls the gruesome details of the werewolf forest victims the carriage driver told him about. Sebastian then wonders whether he has been affected by the curse. He rushes to Ciel's room to find that the boy has also been cursed. Black Butler, Season 5, Episode 3 then shows the demon butler quickly carrying Ciel to Sieglinde Sullivan. Sieglinde is puzzled to see Ciel and Sebastian's state. She hurriedly prepares a purification ceremony with Wolfram's assistance. Sebastian and Ciel then take their clothes off and enter a large pot where they keep their heads underwater. Meanwhile, Sieglinde chants a purification spell and gives them a medicine. The witch asks them to swallow the medicine and then spit it out. As soon as Ciel does this, the choking sensation reminds him of a vivid memory from when he was tortured in a cult, along with many children of his age. The boy recalls how the cultist forced him to eat food and stabbed his friend. Black Butler, Season 5, Episode 3, reveals one of the haunting memories of Ciel Phantomhive. Soon, he wakes up in bed and finds his servants around him. Sebastian tries to approach Ciel, but he outrightly rejects his touch. Ciel mentions that everything around him is dark and thus wants his servants to turn on the lights. Sebastian wonders what's wrong since it's not dark. As soon as he tries to grab Ciel's hands again, Tanaka stops him and says that Ciel's eyes have become momentarily blind. Sometime after, the Phantomhive servants, excluding Finian, are outside Ciel's room. Mei Rin cries because of her master's condition. As such, Boldroy scolds her because he believes that crying will only bring bad luck. The situation perplexes Snake, as he feels that they are unable to take care of Ciel since he's distraught. Tanaka then wonders what they must do. Sebastian Michaelis says if Ciel has truly ordered him not to touch him, he has no option but to obey him. Following that, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 2, Sebastian re-enters the werewolf forest and notices that the weird sensation or miasma from the other day is gone. He wonders why a demon like him would be affected by such miasma. At this moment, he breaks a tree branch and sniffs it. After observing for a while, he returns to the castle and prepares a sumptuous meal for Sieglinde as a sign of apology. During a conversation with Sebastian, Sieglinde reveals that Ciel's eye has been affected by the forest's miasma, which is emitted by the werewolf. She adds that the werewolf's forest weakens one's heart and induces fear. Sebastian recalls a few terrifying memories from Ciel's past and realizes that his young master might just be rejecting adults due to the increased fear. When Sieglinde asks Sebastian about it, the demon butler only says that a lot has happened to Ciel in the past. In other words, he doesn't elaborate much about the boy's memories. At any rate, Sieglinde Sullivan reveals that only she can create the secret medicine to purify Ciel's condition. At this moment, Wolfram lashes out at Sebastian for entering the forest at night. The demon butler calmly states that he went to the forest only out of curiosity to find what sort of person a werewolf might be, considering he has seen many demons and grim reapers in his life. Sebastian then brushes off the topic and urges Sieglinde to prepare the cure for Ciel. He promises to do anything for her. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 3 then shows Sieglinde Sullivan asking Sebastian to become her butler till Ciel's treatment is finished. Seeing no other way, Sebastian accepts her request. The next day, Sebastian Michaelis returns to Ciel's room. However, the boy frenziedly destroys his pillow and still rejects Sebastian's touch. He even shouts at him to go away. Without saying anything, Sebastian leaves the room. After that, Sebastian prepares himself to serve Sieglinde as per their deal. He restores his skin to its previous state before it was scarred by the curse. Sebastian doesn't want to look unsightly when serving a young lady. Following this, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 3 shifts to Sebastian serving Sieglinde, who asks Wolfram to take notes and learn from the butler. Sebastian's duty as Sieglinde Sullivan's butler officially begins as he heads to the kitchen to prepare the morning tea. Interestingly, he notices a few unfamiliar figures in the kitchen. Wolfram then mentions that village women often help with the food preparations and taking care of the young lady. The three ladies introduce themselves as Hilda, Greta, and Anne. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 3 then shows Sebastian assigning various tasks to the Phantomhive servants, including Baldroy, Mayrin, Snake, and Finian. Tanaka, however, is free to do whatever he wants. Sebastian tells Finian to look after Ciel Phantomhive, which surprises the boy. The butler adds that Finian should give Ciel some warm milk with honey if he refuses to eat. On the other hand, Sebastian Michaelis senses Wolfram's scornful looks as he prepares the morning tea. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 3 ends with Sebastian Michaelis heading to Sieglinde Sullivan's room with the bed tea.
Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4, titled His Butler Serving, was released on April 26, 2025. Picking up the events from the previous episode, Episode 4, begins with Sebastian Michaelis entering Sieglinde's room and serving her a Ronnefeld's Salon blend tea she's unfamiliar with. Sieglinde Sullivan is momentarily surprised by the unfamiliar presence and mentions that she has never had wake-up tea. Sebastian notes that a butler must ensure their master has a refreshing beginning to the day. The demon butler's grace impresses Sieglinde as she asks Wolfram to take notes. Following that, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4 shows Hilda helping Sieglinde get dressed. The girl says she doesn't want to wear it. Rather, she wants to wear something foreign. Hilda doesn't know what to do because only a handful of dresses are available. As such, Sebastian takes a bed cover and transforms it into a beautiful dress, much to Sieglinde's surprise and delight. During breakfast, Sebastian instructs Sieglinde on table etiquette and points out her poor manners. He tells Sieglinde that she's using her silverware in the wrong order. Sieglinde, who has never been taught such manners, feels it's fine as long as she can eat. However, Sebastian corrects her methods. He mentions that a landlord must value dignity above all else. Thus, he teaches Sieglinde proper table manners. Wolfram is slightly offended by Sebastian's harsh words and methods, but the demon butler reminds him that it's a butler's duty not to spoil and pamper their master all the time. Interestingly, Sieglinde doesn't mind and asks him to teach her more such stuff. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, the Phantomhive servants, especially Baldroy and Snake, disapprove of Sebastian's cold behavior as he serves under a new master. However, Tanaka is convinced that Sebastian must have a plan. He informs other servants that a butler mustn't only worry about their master, but ensure their master returns to a perfect situation. Following that, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4 shifts to Sieglinde's room, where she asks Sebastian to teach her English. The butler then presents her with a summary of English folk remedies, a book he knows might be challenging for a beginner. Yet, Sieglinde becomes engrossed with the subject and asks Sebastian about various potions. While Sieglinde is busy reading the book, Wolfram steps outside momentarily and encounters Hilda, Anne, and Greta. Hilda warns Wolfram that outsiders are a bad influence on the girl. However, Wolfram states that he cannot do anything to stop Sieglinde's affection for them. Elsewhere, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4, Finian attempts to feed Ciel. Yet, the boy doesn't want to eat and hides his face in a blanket. As such, Finian follows Sebastian's advice and gives Ciel some milk with honey. While feeding him the milk, Finian accidentally blows it into Ciel's face. He then gently wipes his face and asks Ciel if he will go outside for some fresh air. However, the boy doesn't want to go, as he feels it's scary outside. Finian then assures Ciel that he will protect him no matter what happens. Something he decided to do from the moment Ciel gave him the name Finian. However, Ciel tears up and says that he's not worth protecting. In response, Finian begins to weep as well. Episode 4 then delves into a flashback to reveal Finian's past. The flashback scene shows a few agitated doctors eradicating all files and specimens related to their research due to a raid. Finian, who used to be known as specimen number 12, hears the clamor on the upper floor. Suddenly, a doctor appears and shoots two boys beside him. The doctor attempts to shoot Finian next, but the boy's eyes glow, and he violently eliminates all the doctors in the lab. After that, he tries to flee from the underground laboratory. As he ascends to the ground level, he encounters Ciel and Sebastian. Ciel Phantomhive then stares at the boy and asks for his name. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4 then returns to the present and shifts the perspective to Finian, who tells Ciel that he wouldn't be here without him. He mentions how he learned to grow things instead of destroying them with Ciel's help. Moreover, the boy mentions that it's Ciel who turned him from specimen number 12 to Finian. Soon after that, Sebastian and Sieglinde enter Ciel's bedroom. The latter changes Ciel's bandage and observes that his eyes are healing rather quickly. Shortly after, she leaves the room with Sebastian. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4 then shows Sieglinde asking Sebastian whether they are devil worshippers. She believes they are because of the seals on Ciel's left eye and Sebastian's hand. Episode 4, Sebastian Michaelis tells Sieglinde that Ciel was once kidnapped by a certain demon-worshipping organization to be a demon sacrifice. Sebastian had met Ciel during the summoning ritual. The demon butler tries to say more, but Sieglinde tells him not to, realizing it must be a sad story for him. She also promises to keep it a secret from others. Later, Sieglinde informs the Phantomhive servants that Ciel Phantomhive's recovery is going well. Baldroy feels they should return to the Phantomhive manor as soon as Ciel can move. Interestingly, Sieglinde shows hints of reluctance at Baldroy's words, yet she nods her head in agreement. On the other hand, Wolfram asks Sebastian to prepare dinner. During the preparations, Sebastian finds out that they are out of white wine for cooking. Wolfram then informs the demon butler that the wine cellar is down the stairs in the right direction. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4 then shows Sebastian descending the stairs with Snake accompanying him. However, instead of going right, he chooses the left route and reaches a dead end. At this moment, Sebastian investigates the wall and locates a secret passageway. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 4 ends on a chilling note, with the demon butler and Snake witnessing an eerie staircase leading to an unknown place. Picking up the events from the previous installment, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 begins with Snake and Sebastian observing something sinister down the staircase they found earlier. The secret passageway reeks of a mysterious secret the Emerald Castle hides. As Sebastian and Snake are ready to uncover the truth, Wolfram appears behind them. He becomes furious and orders the duo to leave at once. Yet, before they leave, Snake observes something that catches him off guard. Elsewhere, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5, Finian attempts to get Ciel to eat more. At this moment, a werewolf emerges from the window and tries to attack Ciel. Finian shields Ciel from the werewolf's wrath. Consequently, the werewolf slashes Finian's back with his claws. However, Finian remains unperturbed. His eyes start glowing as he kicks the werewolf. Meanwhile, Sebastian and others hear the commotion and arrive at the scene. Yet, before they can intercept the werewolf, it escapes from the window. At this moment, Sieglinde Sullivan arrives at the scene and learns about the werewolf's sudden attack. She orders Wolfram to prepare the secret service of the Emerald Witch. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 then shows Wolfram leading Sieglinde down a secret passageway. The hidden chamber's walls are decorated in a pristine yet sublime fashion. Yet, none can deny the clandestine miasma pervading the chamber. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 shows Sieglinde stepping into the ceremonial circle center, margined by the werewolf statues. She chants a spell, urging the werewolves to tone down their anger. Meanwhile, Snake observes the secret ritual discreetly. Elsewhere in the castle, Ciel Phantomhive grows more fearful, as his servants have a hard time trying to get him to rest. The werewolf's unexpected infiltration further poisons his brain with fear. While applying a bandage on Finian's back, Sebastian overhears Ciel's demand to return home. The demon butler is then thrown into a conflict, as he doesn't know whether or not to listen to Ciel, considering his orders are absolute. On the other hand, the Phantomhive servants worry about Ciel's condition. Tanaka then tells them not to worry, and urges them to keep quiet, as Ciel needs rest. Meanwhile, Wolfram arrives at the scene carrying Sieglinde, and says they are heading to the village to gather intel on the werewolf incident. He tells Sebastian not to poke his nose where it doesn't belong. The demon butler tells the other Phantomhive servants that they will wait for Wolfram and Sieglinde. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5, Episode 5, switches to Buckingham Palace, where Charles Phipps and Charles Grey inform the Queen that they have completed analyzing the plant specimens from the werewolf forest. Grey is perplexed with how Ciel and Sebastian could send the plants from Germany to London in such a short time. Phipps states it's not unusual for Ciel because he has connections to the underworld society and its channels. Meanwhile, the Queen is shocked to see the report's contents. Eventually, her attendant, John Brown, soothes her nerves. After regaining composure, the Queen drafts a letter and seeks the werewolf's elimination. Following that, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 shifts the focus to Ciel Phantomhive, who dreams of a strange phenomenon at night. In his dreams, Ciel confronts his alter ego, who assures him that he can stay with him as long as he wants. Ciel's alter ego tells him that he knows everything about the boy, including the fact that he's scared to see the proof of sin beside him. The alter ego tells Ciel that he doesn't need to hesitate to stay with him for a while in this realm. While Ciel fidgets during his sleep, Sebastian stands outside his room. At this moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5, Snake relays his findings to the butler. Even his pet snake, Oscar, says it's an absolute scoop. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 then switches to the village's center, where the locals surround Sieglinde Sullivan. The villagers beg Ciel to banish the outsiders, as they feel that their staying is what has angered the werewolves. The women in the village are worried that innocents might die because of the outsiders. At this moment, the elderly lady from the village demands the reason for Sieglinde's unusual hesitation to oust Ciel and others. She also reminds her to complete the ultimate spell to tone down the werewolves' anger. Sieglinde is pained by everyone's comments and says she will make the outsiders leave the village the next day. Meanwhile, Hilda asks Wolfram whether he has forgotten his duty. Wolfram proudly says that he hasn't. He mentions that he's still the Emerald Witch's butler, and that it's the tradition. Hilden thinks it's fine, as long as Wolfram understands his role. Meanwhile, the Phantomhive servants are bewildered by Snake's revelation that he has seen werewolves in the castle's basement. Baldroy then suggests going in person to see the werewolves in the chamber. However, Sebastian, who had earlier gone to the secret passageway with Snake, observed that there was a sort of charm on the entrance that warned the intruders. That's how Wolfram caught him red-handed last time. The demon butler requests the servants to distract Wolfram when he returns so he can sneak into the basement. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 then shows Sebastian creating a hole in a wall to descend the hidden stairs to reach the Emerald Castle's basement. He witnesses the ceremonial circle and a magic wand and realizes something perplexing. Meanwhile, Wolfram and Anne return to the castle's kitchen, where the Phantomhive servants are stationed. At this moment, one of Snake's pet snakes, Oscar, wraps around Anne's body. Anne lets out a scream as the snake wriggles around her. Eventually, Sebastian pulls it free from Anne. As Sebastian exits the kitchen, Wolfram sternly orders him to leave the next day. Outside, Snake hears Oscar's hiss and tells Sebastian that Anne smells like a werewolf. At this moment, the demon butler senses someone approaching. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 5 ends with Queen Victoria's aide, John Brown, coming to deliver a letter from His Majesty. Picking up the events from the previous episode, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6 begins with John Brown appearing before Sebastian, Michaelis and Snake to deliver a letter from His Majesty, Queen Victoria. Sebastian asks John whether he has come by horse. John is irked by the question and says he hasn't used his horse because he can't bear to see his companion face such a terrible road. During an exchange, Sebastian informs John that Ciel has fallen sick so that he will pass on the letter. However, John states that the Queen has ordered the letter to be read immediately. As such, the demon butler begins to read the letter's content, shows Sebastian astonished by what he has read. Following this, John announces his leave and instructs Sebastian to tell Ciel to take care. Likewise, Sebastian tells John Brown to be aware of the werewolves. After the Queen's aide leaves, Sebastian tells Snake that they can finally pick up pace. Elsewhere, Wolfram tells Sieglinde that it's almost time for dinner. However, Sieglinde appears slightly morose. She wonders if she can see off Ciel and the rest when they leave. Wolfram immediately rejects such an idea and says it's for the sake of her security. Sieglinde begins to cry, stating she wants to see the outside world. Yet, Wolfram remains adamant in his stance. At this moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6, Sieglinde tries to go after Wolfram and falls as a result. The butler then hugs Sieglinde and apologizes. Meanwhile, Sieglinde says she will complete the ultimate spell, which shall protect everyone. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6 then shifts the focus to Ciel's room, where he has just awakened. At this moment, Finian opens the door and finds Sebastian Michaelis inside. Finian tells Sebastian to go away, as his presence will only scare Ciel. However, Sebastian orders Finian to leave the room for a while. He mentions that he wants to discuss something important with Ciel. Meanwhile, Ciel gets agitated by Sebastian's presence. Finian then steps in between them and urges Sebastian to leave. However, the demon butler grabs Finian and throws him out of the room. After shutting the door, Sebastian approaches Ciel, who trembles with fear. The butler informs Ciel that they have received a letter from the Queen and that they have to leave the village the next day. He menacingly tells Ciel to end his fretful act and take action. When Ciel refuses, a dark aura emits from the butler and binds the boy. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6 then shows Sebastian Michaelis reminding Ciel Phantomhive that abandoning revenge midway is against the Faustian contract. He is displeased with how boring Ciel has become and is prepared to devour his soul. Ciel Phantomhive wonders whether he will die before fulfilling his revenge. Sebastian Michaelis' terrifying form turns Ciel petrified with fear, as he doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, he struggles with his past memories. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6 then explores Ciel's consciousness, where his alter ego asks him to stay with him forever. The alter ego reminds the boy that no one has ever asked him to take revenge. Ciel's alter ego also asks him why he intends to seek revenge, then shows Ciel imagining himself locked in a cage with his family, Vincent, Rachel, Angelina, Joker, and Doll, observing him intently. Ciel's alter ego reminds him that many have perished, wishing for revenge. It asks Ciel whether he wants the Ciel Phantomhive to forgive him. At this moment, the spectator's phantoms ask Ciel some pressing questions. Angelina asks him if he wants to leave his weak self behind, while Joker inquires if he wants everything to become his. Likewise, Rachel wonders whether the boy seeks revenge for her and Vincent. However, Ciel Phantomhive cannot answer any questions. At this moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6, Sebastian Michaelis asks the boy why he put his soul on the line to sign the contract with him. Suddenly, Ciel remembers that he simply uses Sebastian's powers for himself. With this thought, he breaks out of the cage and runs towards Sebastian. As he runs, Vincent and other figures dissipate into thin air. Ciel then calls Sebastian's name and regains consciousness. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6 then shows Ciel Phantomhive regaining his original senses as he stubbornly orders Sebastian to let him go. He also snaps at the demon butler and rests his leg on his shoulder. Sebastian smiles in delight as Ciel returns to his old ways. He greets him with good morning. Meanwhile, Ciel asks Sebastian whether he truly tried to eat him. Sebastian assures the boy that he was only 90% serious about eating him. Moreover, the demon butler tells Ciel that Tanaka has advised him not to take any drastic measures. Following that, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6, Sebastian asks Ciel why he became disoriented. At this moment, Ciel orders Sebastian to let the other servants in, as he also wants to tell them. As soon as Sebastian opens the door, the Phantomhive servants come stumbling in. Finian notices that Ciel has recovered. He rushes toward him in joy. Sebastian grabs Finian before colliding with Ciel and thanks him for caring for his master. Finian then holds Ciel's hands and cries. After that, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 6 shows Ciel apologizing to everyone for his behavior. While the servants feel Ciel doesn't have to be sorry, the boy disagrees. He promises them that they will never see his sorry side again. Ciel Phantomhive then asks them to serve him again. Following that, Ciel mentions how he feared even the tiniest things and completely lost control over his senses. Boldroy says it happens often on the battlefield, so it's not unnatural as such. Sebastian comments that his appearance had a massive impact when Ciel fell under the curse. He wonders whether it was a psychological blow. The demon butler then hands over Queen Victoria's letter to Ciel. The Earl notices a code written on the letter. Sebastian tells Ciel that he had the royal family conduct an experiment on a plant from the werewolf's forest, and that the magic potion had been used on Ciel since it was an emergency. As Ciel reads the analysis report, he understands the secret behind the curse. Sebastian Michaelis then informs Ciel that Sieglinde Sullivan has only acted according to the werewolf's will and is now trying to finish the ultimate spell. Just then, Ciel discovers another letter from the Queen, tucked under the previous one. As he reads the letter, he finds out that the Queen has requested Sieglinde Sullivan to have tea with her. Black Butler Season 5 episode begins with a mysterious person secretly researching the witches and the werewolves. Interestingly, he observes something in the books and is shocked. Meanwhile, Sieglinde Sullivan ruminates about the ultimate magic spell she has to make. She believes once peace is restored in the village, Sebastian and Ciel will visit her again. With this notion in mind, Sieglinde wholeheartedly puts effort into making the spell. Meanwhile, Wolfram Geyser enters her room and tells her to sleep. However, Sieglinde mentions that she can't sleep right now because she must focus on her duty. Elsewhere, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 7, Ciel Phantomhive becomes worried as he reads the Queen's request to have tea with Sieglinde. He is visibly frustrated about the task's difficulty, as he cannot fathom how he can convince Sieglinde about it. At any rate, he realizes they don't have much time since they need to return soon. He asks the servants to make the preparations. Likewise, Ciel orders Sebastian to dress him and relay more information. Following this, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 7 shifts the focus to the Emerald Castle's basement. where Sieglinde Sullivan makes the ultimate magic. As soon as she does that, she loses her consciousness. She regains consciousness in her bedroom and sees her butler, Wolfram. The butler thanks Sieglinde for her efforts. Meanwhile, Sieglinde asks Wolfram if he remembers the day she was crowned the Emerald Witch. Wolfram replies that he can never forget. At the same time, he asks her not to make a gloomy face. Rather, he mentions that she should be proud of her bound feet, which symbolize the fact that she's a descendant of the great Emerald Witch. Meanwhile, Sieglinde believes that she has finally fulfilled one of the responsibilities bestowed on her. She wonders whether her mother, the previous Emerald Witch, whom she no longer remembers, would be happy. Wolfram assures the girl that her mother would have been proud. Following this, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 7, Sieglinde Sullivan suggests they go outside to learn more stuff since she has already completed the ultimate spell. However, Wolfram firmly reminds her that they aren't allowed to leave, as per the law. He urges the girl to rest and leaves her room. Later, at night, Sieglinde hears someone knocking on the window by her bed. She looks out of her window and finds Ciel and Sebastian. Undoubtedly, she becomes slightly surprised, as she cannot believe how they could get up there. However, Ciel reminds him that she shouldn't be surprised, when she herself is a witch who can fly through the air on a broom. At any rate, Ciel says he wants to thank her for what she has done. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 7, Sieglinde wonders whether Ciel Phantomhive is making a bold attempt at her. Ciel becomes slightly enraged, so Sebastian tells him to keep it down. Following this, Sebastian tells Sieglinde that they have prepared a way for her to see the outside world, something she desperately wants. Sieglinde hesitates at first because she knows that she's an Emerald Witch, and she must abide by the witch's customs and remain in the village. Ciel apologizes to Sieglinde for such a proposal and says they will leave in the morning. He thanks the witch and bids her farewell. Ciel Phantomhive's goodbyes overwhelm Sieglinde with emotions as she holds onto his overcoat and says with tears that she will go with them. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 7, Sebastian changes her outfit to escort her to an unknown land. After Sieglinde accepts Ciel and Sebastian's proposal, the duo takes her to the Emerald Castle's basement. They assure the girl that they are, indeed, guiding her to the outside world. In the basement, Sebastian comments that an Emerald Witch's duty is to create the magic circle. At this moment, Black Butler shifts the focus to Sieglinde Sullivan, who comments on the discourse about the werewolves and miasma. She explains that the werewolves are clad in miasma, which is an evil magic that harms humans. According to Sieglinde, miasma was present in the atmosphere in great quantities, and it proved harmful for humans in the past. On the contrary, it was like an elixir for the magical beasts. Hence, when human beings prospered, the sacred magic was lost. Eventually, the werewolves and the witches lost their abilities. That's why the werewolves urged the witches to create a source of miasma. In exchange, they promised to protect the forest, which is now known as the Werewolves' Forest. Therefore, the witches before Sieglinde Sullivan extensively researched and found a formula to create the lost miasma. Interestingly, Sieglinde used the formula to create the ultimate magic that can endlessly produce miasma with massive density. Sebastian Michaelis then comments that it's the history that Sieglinde Sullivan has been taught. The demon butler then moves toward the altar in the center of the circle and unveils a hidden lever. As soon as he pulls the lever, a secret passageway is revealed behind the wall. Much to Sieglinde's astonishment, Sebastian calls it the actual outside world. He wonders whether Sieglinde is ready to see the truth. The girl replies that she won't turn back. As they enter the hidden chamber, they notice an elevator. Using the elevator, they descend to B4 and discover a room filled with gadgets, monitors, and radars. Interestingly, the monitors show the map of the Wolfsschlucht village and track the villagers' current positions via the amulets. According to Black Butler Season 5, Episode 7, the amulets are actually transmitters. Sieglinde Sullivan is flabbergasted. However, Sebastian tells her to be silent. Following this, they move to another floor, which is a lab that specializes in manufacturing chemicals. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 7, They hear a noise and find the village crone holding an assembly with the werewolves. The village crone mentions that Sieglinde has finally done her job. She adds that the miasma Sieglinde has produced will change history. Meanwhile, Sieglinde demands an explanation from the village crone. Just then, the werewolves stationed in the room rush to her. Interestingly, Sebastian slices a werewolf costume to expose a man inside. According to Black Butler Season 5, Episode 7, the werewolves are actually normal human beings in costumes, and the miasma is a chemical weapon constructed by the factory. In other words, miasma is a poisonous gas. Ciel reveals that the whole discourse on the werewolves and the curses was a lie fed to Sieglinde. The Emerald Witch is stunned in shock, as she can't believe the reality of the situation. Meanwhile, the village crone admits that Sieglinde has made the most powerful poisonous gas in history, and calls it Sulin. Picking up the events from the previous episode, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 begins with Wolfram frantically waking up after he receives an emergency signal. He rushes to Siegelinde's room, only to find her missing. Meanwhile, Sieglinde Sullivan bursts into tears, realizing she has made a weapon of destruction. However, the village crone says she shouldn't be ashamed about changing history. At this moment, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 reveals shocking facts about Sieglinde Sullivan's actual history. The village crone reveals that Sieglinde is her biological daughter. 13 years ago, she was involved in a military project concerning the production of mustard gas. Eventually, a genius scientist found the means to synthesize the gas. The village crone was romantically involved with the scientist and conceived Sieglinde. Then, one day, a tragic accident occurred at the factory, where the scientist lost his life. The village crone barely survived the accident and was left with scars. Sometime later, she gave birth to Sieglinde. According to Black Butler, Season 5, Episode 8, Sieglinde Sullivan was a genius from childhood. She could easily decipher complex formulae, including the synthesis of mustard gas. As a result, the village crone contacted the government to set up a new top-secret project called the Emerald Witch Education Project. She wanted to train the genius Sieglinde to develop the ultimate chemical biohazard. With the authorities' help, she set up an environment where the girl could fully focus on research. Furthermore, the people involved in the project fabricated false narratives to motivate Sieglinde. In addition, they isolated the girl from the outside world and other things, like ethics and common sense, that could potentially harm her genius mindset. She was bereft of the common human needs, such as entertainment and pleasure. Instead, Sieglinde was imprisoned in a fake world. The village of Wolfsschlucht was nothing but a stage where the girl was to enact her role. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 reveals that the village crone and others involved in the secret project gave Sieglinde the role of the Emerald Witch and the mission of protecting the villagers from the werewolves. In other words, the werewolves were nothing but normal humans wearing costumes. After hearing the truth about her life, Sieglinde Sullivan becomes disillusioned. She screams frantically, as she can't believe how she lived her entire life within the fabric of falsehood. Wolfram Geyser arrives at the scene and dashes to her. However, Sieglinde yells at him for deceiving her. Meanwhile, Ciel Phantomhive is disgusted by the village crone's actions. He can't believe how a mother can ruin their own child's feet and threaten them to develop a weapon of mass destruction. Ciel comments in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 that children aren't the tools of their parents. As he says this, Ciel shoots upwards and pulls Sieglinde along. Wolfram attempts to stop them from escaping, but he fails. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 then shows Ciel and Sieglinde clambering into an elevator. However, Ciel realizes they must do something about the remaining werewolves, so he orders Sebastian to take care of them. Meanwhile, Wolfram Geyser encounters Hilde while searching for Sieglinde. He explains that the girl has been kidnapped, and she has found out the truth. At this moment, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 reveals Wolfram Geyser's actual identity. Hilde addresses him as Lieutenant Wolfram Geyser, and reminds him that he must dispose of Sieglinde. Meanwhile, the Phantomhive servants, observing the village from a distance, see a bright light flashing in the sky. They recognize it as a sign from Ciel Phantomhive to begin their operation. Elsewhere, Ciel asks Sieglinde to decide whether she still wants to go and see the outside world, or remain cloistered while pointing a gun at her forehead. However, Sieglinde doesn't know what to say, since everything she believes in has shattered into pieces. Therefore, he's not in a position to make any correct judgment. At this moment, Ciel convinces her that since she was able to develop the ultimate poison, she could also create a magical elixir to save the world. Ciel Phantomhive's words renew Sieglinde with hope as she eventually decides to venture into the outside world. Meanwhile, Sebastian Michaelis faces off against a group of men wearing werewolf costumes. Some release mustard gas to suppress the demon butler, but they do nothing to him. After eliminating them, Sebastian finds the village crone, who desperately tries to preserve the Sulin samples and necessary documents. Fear seeps into the village crone's body as Sebastian exhales the poisonous mustard gas, the very thing she desires to make. After disposing of the village crone, Sebastian recalls Ciel ordering him to erase the formulae related to Sulin. He also instructed the demon butler that he could employ any method for that. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 then shows Sebastian Michaelis burning down the entire place. Meanwhile, the Phantomhive servants meet Ciel and Sieglinde in the werewolf's forest. Ciel orders them to split into 2 groups and retreat. On the other hand, a pandemonium follows as the B4 factory is engulfed in fire. People gathered at ground level are shattered. One of them informs Hilda that the mustard gas samples have been stolen. Addressing Hilda as Major Hilda Dickout, Wolfram Geyser says their sole priority should be capturing Sieglinde. Meanwhile, Anne, aka the 1st Commando Squad Captain, Anne Druins, and the 2nd Commando Squad Captain, Greta Hilbert, say they are prepared for action. Anne further reveals that they have located the direction from which the flare was seen. Furthermore, they intend to engage new experimental weapons. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 8 ends with Hilda changing into her military uniform and declaring they must kill Sieglinde if she leaves the werewolf's forest. After destroying the gas lab and rescuing the Green Witch, the team splits again. Near the Baruto River, Snake disguises Bo as Sullivan to divert the enemy's main forces. During their retreat, Snake's squad performs exceptionally well. First to arrive is the ever-dramatic Oscar, followed by the seasoned veteran Huazi Huas, and finally the adorable Emily, who steps in with a crucial strike. With Snake's loyal allies, they manage to shake off a portion of their pursuer. Even though everyone's speaking Japanese in the dub, they still pretend not to understand. Classic. Baruto chooses to stay behind to delay the enemies, urging Snake to move ahead. Before leaving, he specifically warns, "Don't drop the lady." Then comes his secret weapon, a custom-made canister, the same one that's taken out many before. The blast clears out several generic NPCs. Amidst the chaos, one assassin with a teleport skill appears unexpectedly and engages Baruto. Now sit back and enjoy a high-octane American versus German showdown. It cuts between Snake and Sullivan, separating them. Sullivan hits the ground silently. A desperate Wolfram misses the subtle clue and sees the gun pointed at him that he realizes he's walked to a British trap. Not only has the Green Witch upgraded her powers, she's now sporting a new look too. Let's hope when the anime eventually catches up to the manga's escape arc, we still get to see more of Bo's antics. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Sullivan, nestled in Finian's arms, turns instinctively towards the direction of the gunshot, almost as if sensing something telepathically. Finian warns him that it's dangerous to do so, but there's no time to hesitate. To outrun their pursuers, Finian activates his special ability. The scene briefly shifts to a flashback, offering a glimpse into Finian's past from the moment he was first brought back by Sebastian during the rebellion against Dumhuiga. Among the people around Boken, Merlin and Sebastian remembered their pasts and real names. But Finian, being a former test subject, only had a number, experiment number 12. Boken gave him a proper name and started raising him like a normal human being. The process was long and difficult. Even when Merlin debuted and returned home, Finian still couldn't control his strength. Yet, whenever he held Boken's hands, he did so with the utmost care. Sebastian had been a little indignant back then. At least Finian got a proper name. As for himself, a sophisticated aquatic creature. The little master gave him a dog's name. What the boy didn't realize was how important that dog named Sebastian had once been to Bochan. That name carried the weight of hope and trust. Then came the Green Witch arc, arguably the second best visual sequence. We see Finian soaring mid-air, his clear young eyes reflecting the cold moonlight. The night wind brushes his hair as he leaps off the cliff, landing straight into a shallow stream. One moment he's fierce and unstoppable, the next he's yelping in pain, adorably human. The few pursuers left behind are quickly taken down by Merlin from a distance. The rest scatter in fear. Merlin then spots something unusual flicker in the shadows. Screenshot this scene. Hilbert's reaction is bound to become a classic meme. Hilbert fires at Sullivan. Finian is too slow to dodge. Just when it seems too late, Old Man Tanaka steps in with a clean blade-to-bullet counter, showing why the Vondam family never keeps idle hands. The last time we saw such a badass move was when Officer Heiji's mother dodged a slash with bare hands. Meanwhile, at the inn, Sebastian finishes executing Bochan's orders and gets ready to leave. He senses a strange sound, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, Bochan, still thinking he's got the upper hand, is shocked when Wolf dodges his close-range attack and counters with several heavy punches. Those who see what happens next are definitely going to feel sorry for Bochan. On his way out, Bochan is suddenly grabbed by a firm hand, tightly restraining him. He gasps in pain as the hand tightens around his slender neck. Instinctively, he clutches Wolf's arm in a desperate attempt to breathe. You start to wonder, did someone on the anime team have a motherly affection for Bochan? Some of these animation sequences, though subtle in the manga, become extremely intense on screen. Everything leads back to that one turning point. Wolf's eyes burned with overwhelming emotion. In the distance, Snake cried out, "Smile!" The lack of any suffix made it clear. This was Snake himself speaking, not mimicking anyone. Boruto also sensed something was off. A gunshot rang out. Bochan slowly opened his eyes, only to find a gleaming blade pressed against the barrel of the gun, forcing the bullet to miss its mark. It was an old acquaintance, Diedrich. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please take a moment to appreciate this German beauty, still looking devastatingly elegant, even in the shadow of grief. Even Diedrich's usual stern face seemed to soften for a moment. He really loves sandwiches. Every time you catch him eating, it's always a sandwich. That sequence of memories was beautifully animated, and that wraps up episode 9.
お嬢様、
貴様。
ご堪能くださいませ。
Picking up the events from the previous installment, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10 begins with Diedrich engaged in a combat against Wolfram Geyser. With precise guile, he pretends to call for an attack, which bamboozles Baldroy. Diedrich uses this diversion to kick Wolfram Geyser and shoot his wrist. Having sustained injuries, Wolfram swiftly hides behind a tree. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10, Ciel Phantomhive asks Diedrich why he has come. The man explains that Ciel is in a lot of trouble. While carrying him, Diedrich explains that the army has been setting up something deadly in the forest. Just then, a powerful blast cuts through a few trees, halting Diedrich and Ciel from their escape. Diedrich shields Ciel from the attack. After the blast, Snake and Baldroy join the duo. Meanwhile, the ground continues to shake violently. At this moment, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10 shows an armored vehicle emerging from the land. Interestingly, it's a military Panzer. Sensing trouble, Diedrich urges the party to run as fast as they can. While running from the tank, Ciel can't help but be amazed by Germany's technological advancements. Hilda and others are inside the tank, charging at Ciel. Hilda continues to give instructions to Anne and other military personnel. Meanwhile, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10, Baldroy attempts to fire multiple rounds of bullets at the tank. However, Panzer's excellent defense renders his shots useless. The bullets don't even put a scratch on the tank. On the other hand, Diedrich says they must continue running, as the tank's cannon can kill them in an instant. At the same time, he informs Ciel that a military railway exists on the eastern side of the forest. According to Diedrich in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10, it's a railway used to transport goods to build the village. He thinks they can escape via train. Just then, Ciel Phantomhive collapses from sustaining multiple injuries during his battle against Wolfram. At this moment, Panzer's cannon gets loaded. Yet, before the blow can annihilate them, Sebastian Michaelis appears. He manages to rescue Ciel from the attack. Meanwhile, Diedrich requests the others to continue running, since another attack could approach them any minute. Meanwhile, Wolfram Geyser becomes furious at the army for not hesitating to kill Sieglinde. He mentions that Sieglinde Sullivan would have been a casualty if she had been caught in the blast. He angrily stands up and heads off somewhere. Elsewhere, Sebastian shows Ciel the Sulin samples he gathered from the lab. Ciel looks at them and orders Baldroy and Snake to head to the railway station with Diedrich and inform Finian, Tanaka, Mei Rin, and Sieglinde with a flare. Following this, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10, Ciel hands over the Sulin samples to Diedrich and asks him to carry them. Diedrich complains that he has to do the worst job and compares Ciel with Vincent. However, Ciel Phantomhive says he trusts him with such a job. The boy further states that he and Sebastian will handle the Panzer. Diedrich is slightly worried, but Baldroy assures him, saying Ciel must have a plan. He also mentions that they have Sebastian. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10 then shows Sebastian Michaelis carrying Ciel Phantomhive. Although Ciel wants his demon butler to put him down, Sebastian says he won't because he is not wearing shoes. Sebastian also teases Ciel for his petite figure. Soon after that, Ciel commands his butler to destroy Panzer. Meanwhile, Hilda arranges a machine gun to kill Sebastian, but the demon butler swiftly dodges the bullets and kicks against the side of the Panzer. Interestingly, Sebastian's blow leaves a footprint on the tank's surface. However, it fails to pierce through. While evading the bullets, Sebastian notes that the tank's surface is very thick. He speculates that such a tank must have a thinner and lighter part somewhere. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to move it at a high speed. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10 then shows Sebastian moving with extreme speed, evading the soldiers' bullets. He leaves a bomb made by Baldroy, which explodes the infantry. Hilda then commands the tank's operators to adjust the angle of the shooting. The commander is ready to die along with others, even if it means destroying Ciel and Sebastian. When they get to the shooting range, Hilda orders her troops to fire the cannon. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10, Sebastian jumps forward and kicks the gun. He follows it up by punching a hole through the top, after realizing that it's the tank's most vulnerable point. Sensing danger, Hilda shoots Sebastian a few times before she runs out of ammo. The demon butler then throws a couple of more bombs made by Baldroy into the tank to explode it. Following this, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10 shifts the perspective to Ludger, a grim reaper, who reaps Anne's soul and analyzes her record. Ludger notes to his partner, Sasha, that demons are indeed ruthless. However, Sasha doesn't pay attention to him. Instead, she is reading a document. Sasha mentions that the documents sent by their English branch have been exhilarating. Black Butler Season 5 Episode 10 ends with Ludger, and Sasha realizing that the upcoming events might become interesting. Picking up the events from the previous episode, Black Butler Season 5 Episode 11 commences with Ludger commenting that Sasha seems excited. Sasha is interested to see what happens since both England and Germany are involved in the affair. She is also happy to be a Grim Reaper and asks Ludger what he feels will happen next. While observing the scenes, Ludger thinks they should get rid of Sebastian Michaelis first. Sasha remarks that the demon is with his master, Ciel Phantomhive, which is why they can ignore him. Ludger initially mistakes Ciel for a girl before Sasha corrects him. She reads the document and realizes that Ciel is from the Phantomhive family. Meanwhile, Ciel notices Ludger and Sasha in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 11. The Grim Reapers are surprised because humans cannot normally see them. They speculate it's probably because Ciel has a Faustian contract with Sebastian, which brings the boy closer to death, and the Grim Reapers are death themselves. Ludger also wonders if Ciel can see them because of his unique lineage. At any rate, the boy's ability to see them surprises the duo. Ludger then tells Sasha that they should go and collect the next souls. Sasha waves to Ciel, and then they disappear. Meanwhile, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 11, Sebastian also notices the Grim Reapers. He is glad that, unlike the English Grim Reapers, the German ones don't feel the urge to interfere with their work. Elsewhere, Tanaka is engaged in a combat against Greta, who cannot believe how her opponent can move without making a sound. Meanwhile, Mayrin shoots Greta's hat, which prompts her to retreat. Shortly after that, Mayrin joins Tanaka, who admits that he isn't young anymore. They decide not to pursue Greta as they notice flares in the sky. Tanaka realizes that Ciel must have changed his route and informs Mayrin that they should go too. Meanwhile, Diedrich, Baldroy, and Snake reach the military railway. Diedrich is about to open a door, but Snake cautions him that there are several people inside. Yet, he is happy that people are still active, which means they can get them to move the train as soon as possible. Diedrich then asks Baldroy, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 12, to put coal in the furnace. Once Baldroy follows the man's orders, Finian, who is carrying Sieglinde, arrives with Tanaka and Mayrin following him. Baldroy tells Finian to open the gate and instructs Mayrin and Snake to check the oil. After doing the essentials, the Phantomhive servants finally get the train moving. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 11, Wolfram appears at the scene and aims a gun at Sieglinde's direction. Sieglinde becomes rather shocked to see Wolfram. Yet, in reality, Wolfram targets Greta behind Sieglinde, whom he successfully shoots. Greta falls to the ground while cursing Wolfram for betraying them. Meanwhile, Wolfram runs after Sieglinde and the train, while apologizing for lying to her and assuring her that she doesn't need to forget them for what they have done. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 11, Wolfram Gelzer gets shocked from behind by Hilda, who has somehow survived the onslaught. Yet, moments later, Sebastian arrives at the scene and kills Hilda. Meanwhile, Wolfram, in a rather emotional scene, tells Sieglinde that she's not a witch, but a normal girl. Sieglinde tearfully calls out to Wolfram, who has always been a parental figure to her. The narrative for Black Butler Season 5, Episode 11 then delves into Wolfram Gelzer's monologue, as he reminisces about the days he spent in military training. Apparently, Wolfram had always perceived others and places around grey. He didn't know that the other colors existed. He spent arduous training days with the sole motive of fighting endlessly for his country. Therefore, Wolfram and other young recruits were put through immense training, yet they never knew the reason behind his duty. Eventually, he was assigned to a top-secret mission, the Emerald Witch Education Project. Although he was initially annoyed with the task of protecting a little girl, he eventually found happiness after seeing the girl drawing a picture of him carrying her. According to Black Butler Season 5, Episode 11, Sieglinde Sullivan showed Wolfram all the colors in the world. He finally felt a desire to protect something and found a reason for battle. Wolfram Gelzer's recollections are eventually interrupted by Sieglinde's crying voice. She desperately wants the man to survive. Wolfram realizes that he is on the train. Meanwhile, Ciel Phantomhive tells Wolfram that a butler must not die before their master. Eventually, the Phantomhive servants perform surgery on Wolfram to save his life. Sieglinde begs Wolfram not to die. At this moment, Ciel grabs Sieglinde and reminds her of her duty as the Emerald Witch to ensure the villagers' safety. He reminds her that Wolfram is the only one alive. With the absence of magic, Sieglinde must save Wolfram's life with her own hands. Ciel's words fill the girl with resolve, and she sternly tells Wolfram that she will forget him if he dies. Following the surgery, Wolfram notes that his wounds have stopped bleeding. Sieglinde weeps in relief and hugs Wolfram. Meanwhile, Ciel asks Diedrich if he can arrange a place of hiding, as they can't risk going to the hospital. On the other hand, Ciel instructs Sebastian to pick up Wolfram, to which he shows surprise. Ciel asserts that Sieglinde will require someone to look after her in a world filled with monsters worse than the werewolves. Furthermore, Ciel Phantomhive comments that Sieglinde will be his insurance to avoid someone wanting to murder him for knowing too much. Sebastian asks Ciel why he should have insurance when he has him. Black Butler Season 5, Episode 11 ends with Ciel saying that he's the one whom he can trust the least. Picking up the events from the previous episode, Black Butler Season 5, Episode 12 begins with Ludger collecting Hilda's soul near the railway track. Meanwhile, Sasha reads the documents about Sieglinde and Wolfram, who were supposed to die. Sasha is amazed that they are alive and will now head for England. She wonders if that's how human history is made. Ludger feels Sasha is exaggerating the situation. However, his fellow Grim Reaper reminds him that England now has personnel who can create a new type of poisonous gas with massive killing potential. She feels it's the perfect strategic move on the part of England. The Grim Reaper becomes impressed by humanity's evolution. Yet, she also thinks that a war involving multiple countries is likely if the world balance were to tip. While Ludger thinks it's such a waste for such a war to happen, Sasha disagrees. She feels that it will be better than having nothing to do. Sasha also feels that Sebastian must be thinking along the same lines. At this moment in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12, William Spears and Grell Sutcliffe arrive at the scene. Ludger considers Grell's greetings flashy, but the Grim Reaper doesn't react in any hostile fashion. Sasha then hands over the documents to William and says they can take over. William doesn't like how they are sent all the way to Germany. At the same time, William believes something massive might unfold soon. On the other hand, Grell says she's enjoying their trip together. Hearing this, William casually hits her with his scythe. Meanwhile, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12, Sasha brings up the topic of the moving corpses in England, the incident at the public school Ark. William becomes concerned as he says that they are still investigating them. He remarks that there haven't been similar cases reported in Germany yet. William tells the German Grim Reapers to inform the English branch if they receive any intel about the seceders. Following this, he heads off with Grell. Meanwhile, Sasha and Ludger talk about the seceders in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12. The latter thinks that the ones who leave the Grim Reaper Dispatch Society get either tired of the job or for a specific reason. On the other hand, Sasha can understand the seceders, since she was a human before. According to Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12, humans who end their own lives become Grim Reapers as a form of punishment. They work tirelessly observing other people's deaths until the day they are forgiven. Therefore, she thinks it's not alien for the Grim Reapers to get depressed while seeing people's regrets and attachments to life day after day. However, Ludger comments that Sasha doesn't give him the impression of someone who can get depressed. The Grim Reaper smiles and says they are having more fun than when they were humans. She considers the job of a Grim Reaper to be her vocation, much to Ludger's surprise. Meanwhile, Dietrich brings Ciel and others to his castle in Germany. Dietrich's butler, Heinrich, seems perplexed to see his master and others in a disheveled state. On Dietrich's orders, Heinrich calls a doctor and prepares a bath. After entering the villa, the Phantomhive servants marvel at the castle's size. According to Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12, Dietrich's castle is called Weissacker. Apparently, it's small compared to their main castle. Following this, the servants tend to the injured ones. In the meantime, Sebastian Marsalis bathes Ciel and tells him about Wolfram's health. According to Sebastian in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12, Wolfram has recovered. Ciel then thinks about the Queen's actual motives. He realizes that Germany's advanced technology is now in England's hands. Sebastian seems intrigued by the whole affair. Later at night, Ciel Phantomhive and Sebastian speak to Dietrich about the Undertaker. According to Dietrich, Undertaker visited him a while back. Apparently, the ex-Grim Reaper had something to do in France. As such, he stopped by Germany while on his way. Black Butler, Season 5, Episode 12, then delves into a flashback, revealing a past conversation between Undertaker and Dietrich. Undertaker mocks Dietrich by reminding him about his change in appearance. He says Vincent would laugh if he were to see Dietrich now. Surprisingly, Undertaker sheds tears while recalling Vincent Phantomhive's death. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 12, Undertaker claims that the Phantomhive's Earl is still with them. Ciel and Sebastian are perplexed to hear about Undertaker's odd comment. Dietrich says he didn't pay attention to his claims earlier. Meanwhile, Ciel becomes curious about who the ex-Grim Reaper was referring to as the Earl. Just then, Heinrich interrupts their conversation and informs them that the dinner is served. While they head to the dining table, Ciel informs Dietrich that his mission will be completed once he hands Sieglinde to the Queen. He also reveals that they will head for England once their wounds are healed. As they reach the dining hall, Ciel and Sebastian notice Sieglinde profusely eating. They wonder whether she's ready to meet the Queen. Ciel comments that it's entirely Sebastian's job to make Sieglinde more ladylike. Following this, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 12, Ciel, Sebastian, and Sieglinde visit Wolfram Gelzer, who is slowly recovering from his injuries. Wolfram asks Sebastian why he saved him. The demon butler answers that it's because Ciel ordered him to. Ciel Phantomhive explains that Wolfram's duties were unfinished. Sieglinde still needs someone to look after her. Therefore, it would be irresponsible if Wolfram were to die. Wolfram Gelzer then apologizes to Sieglinde, but the girl stops him. Sieglinde says, although she is angry with him for deceiving her, she has also betrayed him since she planned on leaving the werewolves' forest and abandoning him. Sieglinde Sullivan assures her butler that she has forgiven him for his deeds. She hopes that he can continue being her butler. Black Butler Season 5, Episode 12 then shows Wolfram Gelzer hugging Sieglinde tightly as he agrees to venture into the external world with her. The next day, Ciel and others bid farewell to Diedrich and leave Germany for London. Sieglinde Sullivan and Wolfram Gelzer are dazzled by London's appearance. Meanwhile, Sebastian reminds them to speak English and be presentable before meeting the Queen. The Phantomhive servants head to the townhouse first, while Ciel and Sebastian escort Sieglinde and Wolfram to Nina Hopkins' tailor store. On Ciel's request, Nina takes Sieglinde away to measure her. Sieglinde Sullivan is wowed to see a portrait of a girl with a bob haircut and wants to have the same hairstyle. Black Butler Season 5, Episode 12 ends with Sieglinde shocking Ciel, Sebastian, and Wolfram with her new look.
悪い。
Picking up the events from the previous episode, Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13 begins with Sieglinde Sullivan shocking Wolfram, Ciel, and Sebastian with her new bob haircut. However, Sebastian becomes slightly disappointed because Sieglinde's hairstyle doesn't fit into the standards of the ladies who are granted an audience with the Queen. The demon butler feels Sieglinde should have worn her hair up like the other ladies. Nevertheless, the party arrives at Ciel Phantomhive's townhouse, where Soma Osman Kadar yells at the boy. He is sad because Ciel didn't invite him to go with him to Germany. Meanwhile, Soma notices Sieglinde and wonders whether she is Ciel's new concubine. Ciel Phantomhive gets furious over such a remark and denies it straight away. Interestingly, Sieglinde smirks as she hears Soma's comments. Following this, Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13 focuses on Sebastian teaching Sieglinde table manners. As they sit down to eat, Sieglinde sees many delicious dishes being served one after another. As she tries to eat before everyone, Sebastian reminds her that it's not how a lady should behave. Sebastian's strict teaching manners scare Soma, but Ciel remains nonchalant. On the other hand, Wolfram Gelzer gets angry. However, the demon butler shuts him up by saying that if he has any complaints, he should say them in English. Otherwise, he won't listen. Wolfram Gelzer then anxiously flips through the pages of a dictionary. Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13 then shows Sieglinde keeping up with Sebastian's harsh training sessions. Wolfram is also forced to learn English. The training sessions go past nighttime. Sieglinde finally goes to Ciel and complains about how tough Sebastian is on her. However, she storms outside when the boy doesn't give her any attention. Later, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13, Sebastian Michaelis appears with tea in Ciel's room. The former thinks Ciel should at least hear what Sieglinde has to say. However, Ciel doesn't want to be unproductive because of Sieglinde. The following day, Sieglinde Sullivan learns how to pay courtesy with Wolfram supporting her. Sebastian oversees her progress and realizes that it's time to work on her English pronunciation. Yet, it's not that easy since none of them have studied English properly in their life. Since they don't have much time left before the meeting with the Queen, Sebastian puts the contraption in both Sieglinde's and Wolfram's mouths. Sebastian tells the duo in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13 that they should follow the movements of their tongues. This way, they will be able to hone their English pronunciation. Sometime after, Sieglinde becomes enraged and runs to Ciel for help. However, as she does that, Ciel accidentally falls on top of her. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13, Elizabeth enters the room and sees the duo in a compromising position. Elizabeth is convinced Ciel is being unfaithful to her, so she lunges at him. but Sebastian arrives in time to block Elizabeth's attack. She finally calms down and sits with Sieglinde, Ciel, and Soma. The girl learns about Sieglinde's situation and apologizes for her misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Soma tells Ciel that Sebastian Michaelis' training sessions are truly cruel. At this moment, Elizabeth says that lessons can be fun and engaging if everyone participates. She suggests they should all do Sebastian's lessons together. Sieglinde Sullivan is happy that Elizabeth has turned up to help her, while Ciel is slightly reluctant. He eventually gives in to Elizabeth's demands. Elizabeth puts Ciel through a balance training, which makes Sieglinde laugh. After a grueling training session, Ciel Phantomhive collapses on his bed. Sebastian reminds Ciel that he should be nicer to people around him and pay attention to their feelings. The boy slyly comments that it's an odd comment coming from a demon. However, Sebastian only wants to be a loyal and obedient butler, even though he doesn't comprehend human emotions. Following this, the narrative for Black Butler Season 5 Episode 13 shifts the focus to the Buckingham Palace's gate, where Charles Grey and Phipps greet Sieglinde Sullivan, who appears slightly nervous. They walk the lady and Wolfram inside. Grey observes that Sebastian isn't coming with them, and asks the demon why. Sebastian says it's because Ciel has given him a task. Charles Grey becomes a bit suspicious, but doesn't ask anything more of the butler. Meanwhile, Sieglinde and Wolfram are wowed to see the Buckingham Palace's grand interior. Charles led them up the stairs and opened a giant door at the end of the hallway. Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13 then shows Queen Victoria and John Brown awaiting Sieglinde's presence. Queen Victoria is delighted to meet Sieglinde, who gently bows down. Meanwhile, Wolfram and Ciel are somewhat relieved that the girl was able to perform a curtsy, despite the condition of her feet. Following this, the episode shows the Queen, Sieglinde, and Ciel sitting down for some tea. Sieglinde marvels at the sight of a wide selection of cakes at the table. Meanwhile, Queen Victoria asks Ciel to tell her about his trip to Germany. The boy informs the Queen about the werewolf's curse, which was actually toxic mustard gas. He also mentions how the German army had advanced the potency of the gas to the point where they were ready to use it in combat. Ciel also explains that Sieglinde's talents will benefit England. Meanwhile, the Queen asks the girl whether she can create things more potent than the mustard gas. Interestingly, Sieglinde says she can't. At this moment, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 13, Sieglinde recalls a conversation with Ciel from the previous night. Ciel Phantomhive suggested that Sieglinde should give the Queen the process to make mustard gas. Doing so would not only help her gain favor from the Queen, but also money, which she badly needed to survive. Ciel knew about Sieglinde's irresistible desire to study. He also knew that it wasn't possible without money. Yet, the boy warned her not to breathe a word about Sulin, which was more lethal than the mustard gas. Ciel feared that there would be more deaths if Sulin were created. After hearing Ciel's worries, Sieglinde Sullivan promised to keep her ultimate creation a secret. At present, Queen Victoria breathes a sigh of relief, saying she cannot handle dreadful things. Elsewhere, in Black Butler Season 5 Episode 13, Sebastian Michaelis jumps into the ocean with a suitcase filled with Sulin samples to ensure they are lost forever. Meanwhile, Ciel assures the Queen of wonderful results if Sieglinde works for her subjects' sake. Sieglinde Sullivan thanks the Queen and says she will prove herself useful. Queen Victoria joyfully praises Ciel for his work and says his parents must be happy with Prince Albert. The moment Queen utters Albert's name, she bursts into tears. Meanwhile, John Brown cheers up the Queen with Albert's puppet and states Ciel has truly grown up like his father. Outside the palace, Sebastian greets the party and assures Ciel that he has done as instructed. Meanwhile, Ciel wants to go home and rest. Later at night, Undertaker creeps into Ciel's room and has him swallow a certain liquid from a vial. Ciel Phantomhive asks him in a half-asleep state whether it's morning yet. The ex-Grim Reaper gently covers his eyes and tells him to sleep a bit longer. The next moment, Ciel wakes up with a jolt and ends up grabbing Sebastian's arm. Sebastian notes that Ciel seemed agitated, so he wanted to wake him up. The demon butler pours him a cup of tea and asks if it was another nightmare. Ciel stares at his reflection in the tea and says nothing. Black Butler Season 5, Episode 13 ends with Ciel Phantomhive and Sebastian receiving another letter from the Queen. However, the contents of the letter aren't disclosed.